أعزائي المشاهدين، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. نرحب بكم في حلقة جديدة من برنامج الحد الأدنى. يسعدنا في هذه الحلقة أن نعيد تسليط الضوء مجددا على قضية شغلت بال المراقبين وكذلك المهتمين وبعض أركان المجتمع الدولي لمناقشة قضية الحريات الدينية في السودان. ظلت قضية تأخذ مكانها في السابق أثناء الحرب في جنوب السودان، ولكن بعد انفصال جنوب السودان تجددت مرة أخرى للحفاظ على حقوق الأقليات في السودان. وفي هذه الحلقة نسعد بأن نستضيف القس بينز، وهو كبير أساقفة ليدز، وهو عضو البرلمان البريطاني في مجلس اللوردات، وكذلك هو أيضا كبير مستشاري كبير أساقفة كانتربري. You are welcome to Sudan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
القس يزور السودان هذه الأيام، حيث شارك في ورشة الحريات الدينية التي استضافتها الخرطوم، والتي انعقدت بالتعاون بين لجنة الحريات الدينية ومجلس الكنائس السوداني. خاطبها القس في الخرطوم هنا بينز، وكذلك بعض الشركاء الدوليين منهم القائم بالأعمال الأمريكي، وكذلك ممثل لمنظمة سان جيديو الإيطالية في السودان، كما خاطبها أيضا ويليام دينغ من مجلس الكنائس السوداني. ناقشت هذه الورشة التي انعقدت في الخرطوم عدد من الأوراق، وفتحت عدد من القضايا للنقاش التفاعلي. ناقشت هذه الورشة ورقة حول الحريات الدينية في الدستور والقوانين السودانية من منظور قانوني وفقهي، قدمها البروفيسور علي من جامعة الخرطوم. وكذلك تم نقاش رؤية مجمع الفقه الإسلامي حول قضايا الحريات الدينية من منظور فقهي، قدمت أيضا. وكذلك هناك قدمت ورقة هامة حول قضايا العطلات المدرسية الخاصة بالمدارس المسيحية، وكذلك إجراءات ومعايير تشييد دور العبادة وحماية الكنائس في السودان. بهذه المقدمة نبدأ هذا الحوار مع القس بينز. كما ذكرنا هو كبير الأساقفة في الكنيسة الأنجليكانية في ليدز، عضو البرلمان البريطاني، ومستشار كبير أساقفة كانتربري. After this introduction, you are welcome again to our show, and we are really pleased to have you here.
Well, I'm very pleased to be in Sudan. It's my third visit, so I've grown to love the country. I don't love your mosquitoes, who have had a party on me in the last couple of days, but it's very good to be here.
We have a Sudanese proverb: whenever you drink from the water of the Nile, we will come again, and hope to see you fourth time again in Sudan.
I hope so.
I would like to ask first about a broad perspective regarding the relation between religion and politics. Nowadays, the world, from intellectual point of view, are divided. In a secular orientation point of view, that religion has nothing to do with the state, having in mind the historical experience in Europe before and the conflict between the church and the state. And other view, on the other hand, there is another view, think that, religion and politics are interlinked. You cannot talk politics without religion. You cannot talk about religion without politics.
Well, I think you can't understand the world if you don't understand religion, because religion often in the West is seen as a sort of add-on. So you have ordinary life and politics and economics and social movements and so on, and then religion somehow is over here and you bring that in at the end. And that's a misunderstanding of how religion operates, because if you are committed to a particular religious worldview or a community of practice, then that shapes the whole of the way you see life and the world. So if you don't understand religion, you can't understand why people and communities act in the way they do, why they choose the things they do. Now, I think on the distinction between religion and politics, there's a difference between saying, as I would, that religion and politics belong together, because politics is about people and power, and religion is about people.
Yes.
And they're living together. And whenever you have people together, you have questions of power. So religion must have something to say. As a Christian, I would say that the notion of power that we have in Christianity, although our history doesn't always show it very well, is that we don't use power to oppress people, but
Correct.
power is to be given away. Now, religion and politics belonging together in that sense, I think, is indisputable. But when power and politics try to use religion for its own ends or party ends, then you have a problem.
You don't feel any contradiction being a member of the House of Lords and being a bishop, a religious leader in your country?
No. And the reason is that I think firstly I would say if you were to create a parliament, you probably wouldn't create what we have in England now, with 26 bishops as part of the upper house, the House of Lords.
Yes.
But we've inherited it. And what the bishops bring is that we don't belong to a party, we're not a bloc, we can't be told what to say.
You don't have a parliamentary group as well?
No, and we can't be told how to vote. So regularly, bishops will vote in the same debate in different ways. Because our responsibility in the British Constitution, the British polity, is to serve the common good of the people, not primarily the interests of the church.
Yes.
But we do offer a voice in a secular space for the place of religion and religious communities. So I don't think there's a contradiction, even though it's a bit odd.
You have said before that, it is always dangerous when the process of mixing politics and religion together in a way to have a politicization of religion,
Mm-hmm.
or to use religion for political ends.
Mm.
I mean, you don't think there is a confusion because there is no fine line you can distinguish or separate when they meet together and they can,
Yeah.
differ together?
Yeah, it's a constant negotiation, and what you call the fine line will get transgressed. But a mature state, I think, is one, and a mature religion is one that recognizes the fragility of its own position, and therefore has the humility to negotiate that relationship all the time. So, to go back to the House of Lords, I could find myself arguing and voting for something that is not in my interest or the interests of the church, because we are looking at the wider interests of the whole country.
This will bring me to the question about integrating religious freedom in the agenda of the foreign policy.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite clear in US foreign policy, UK foreign policy. I mean, religious freedom and human rights in general being an integral part of the foreign
Mm-hmm.
policy objectives. How do you think about that? And you don't think this is also using politics for religious objective, or using religion for political objectives?
Well, I think if it is, it's gone wrong. But I think the maintaining of a religious perspective on politics and international affairs can be helpful. So for
In what sense?
Well, in the sense that there's a former German Chancellor, Helmut Schmidt, who wrote a book when he was 91 called Out of Office. And one of the things he writes in this book is that when German young people come to him, he's dead now, but when they came to him and said they were interested in entering politics, he said to them, don't even think about it unless you speak at least 2 foreign languages to a competent level. Why? Because you can't understand your own culture unless you look through the lens of another culture, and to do that you need language. And I think when it comes to politics, to the negotiation between religion and power, then we need to be able to look from the outside at our own situation. And again, that's evidence of a mature society, a mature politics, that we can look through the eyes of outsiders to see what we look like and what we sound like. And that issues a corrective. So, you know, I can look at freedom of religion and human rights in Sudan from the outside, careful not to bring in my agenda, but to try and understand it first of all.
Correct.
But then Sudan might say, well, this is a gift that someone from outside is able to tell us what we look like. And I think that's where the international community can be seen, rather than as a problem, as a helpful gift in helping us to see more clearly and recalibrate. Because if I live in my bubble in England, I'll give you an example. Brexit is going on at the moment.
Yes.
Well, I do a lot of work in Germany, Switzerland, and so I read the German and the French media because I want to know what it looks like. Now, in Britain, it can look like we are saying we're really strong, we're powerful, we're going to leave the European Union and strike out on our own. And in Germany, they're going, you're mad. And so we need to
I have heard the same. Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yes.
So with religion and freedom of religion and human rights, we should see it as a gift to look through the eyes of the outsider to see where we might improve, how we might change, and where we might be challenged.
But the problem here, I think every religion has its own perspective regarding the worldview, or even looking into some international politics, or even social problems. My question will be, why all attempt and endeavors to revive the religion dialogue in order, you know, to prevent conflict, in order not to use politics for fanatic move or terrorism or something like that. Most of the attempt to reconcile the perspective of different religion, to have a peaceful world, or more to have an open dialogue between religion, almost failed. Why?
Well, I think there are very strong dialogues between, particularly between religious leaders, and on the ground, very often between particular religious communities. What's difficult is that if you look at the level of religious leaders around the world, they can sign documents, they can agree that we ought to live in peace. That doesn't always filter down to the grassroots, at ground level. If you were to say religion is a problem because it encourages fanatics, for example, so we ought to marginalize religion, I would say, well, you have to marginalize politics and politicians, because every human being has a worldview. There is no neutrality.
They're making mess all over the world.
Yeah, there is no neutrality. So no one can say, well, I occupy objectively neutral space, and everyone else is somewhere up the crazy scale. But I think at the root of your question is possibly an assumption that is widely held around the Western world, that religion is a problem. Whereas I would say religion could be the solution, or part of the solution. So how do politicians stop seeing religion as a problem with crazy people, and how does it embrace religion and say, we will be open to look through your eyes to see how the world looks to us?
From your perspective, there is dialogue between civilization. This is the motto right now, and there is organization regarding that. In a way, I think if you could have a real dialogue directly between religion, rather than to have the umbrella of civilization, as if there is a Western civilization, Eastern civilization, Persian, Egyptian, or something like that. You don't think that if we have a direct dialogue between religion, might be better than to go for dialogue between civilization in a way?
Well, this is a matter of some debate. I remember when the United Nations and the Spanish government came up with an alliance of civilizations, and there were some religious bodies, including the Roman Catholic Church, that found it very difficult and wouldn't engage with that, and for a number of reasons. But I think there are many dialogues bilateral dialogues between religious bodies, and then the more multilateral conversations. So, for example, some of the global conferences on interreligious dialogue, where they're basically political. It's not about what you believe about God and the world and people. It's not over against what I believe. It's, okay, first question, do we agree on how we see God, the world, and us? Well, in some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. So the next question, how then do we live together? And there are some dialogues going on about, for example, between the Church of England and Jews, between Christians and Muslims, different types of Muslims. But there are also then the how do we live together questions, which are more political, which is we won't talk about God, we'll talk about we are different, so how do we enable our communities to negotiate that space in a conflicted world and a complicated world? It's not simple.
Sudanese people still remember the positive role that had been played by the International Council of Church during Addis Ababa Agreement 1972. And that will bring the perspective of the role of religion to solve conflict in Africa in general. And I think there are different successful stories regarding that. Do you think still religion is relevant for peacemaking and conflict resolution in general and Africa in particular?
Well, yes, but only if religious leaders and religious communities have the humility to know that you're there to serve our common humanity, not to defend your own interests. So if I want to defend the interests of Christians in conflicted places in the world, I can do so, but it's part of a wider picture. So I think there is a place for religion, but we're never going to solve everything. So I think what we look for is incremental improvements, bit by bit, the occasional victory, even though there may be occasional setbacks.
This is good, and this will bring me to another critical issue regarding the whenever some people, when they listen the quote-unquote religious freedom, they always think that it is a freedom for Christians, not all different religious followers. When you say that religious freedom, most of the people think, okay, this term coined to be for Christians, not for the religious freedom for Muslim or Jews or other followers. How can you defend that?
Because, well, I wouldn't defend that. Because it isn't just about Christians. This is about majority and minority, which is not about religion, primarily. If you are the majority culture, or a majority religion in a place, then the question you may want to ask is, how do we make space for minorities? The minorities will say, we don't want you to make space, we want to be equal. And that's a different conversation. So in Sudan, for example, the Christians might be saying, we feel we are not equal, we are equal citizens, but we should be able to operate equally as people of religious commitment. But the majority isn't hearing that. I mean, I don't know if that's true, you could tell me. But that's how a minority will approach it. When you have genuine equality as citizens of a state, then that looks and feels different. And we face the same question in the United Kingdom, where there are Muslims who say, you know, we feel we don't belong or we are marginalised. But I would say we are actually equal. But I have to learn. There are a lot of Muslims where I live, but I have to learn to look through their eyes and hear through their ears and feel through their skin. And it may look different from the perspective of the minority.
Thank you very much for that. We'll go for a short break and come back. أعزائي المشاهدين، فاصل قصير ثم نعود، فابقوا معنا.